Hi and welcome back to Infinity Coders channel. In this video, we will focus on one essential aspect of user interface design, which are buttons. Buttons are essential for delivering interactive and improving user experience. Throughout this tutorial, we will cover everything you need to know about adding buttons to your app and customizing them to match your design preference. So at the end of this video, you will be able to design or customize your button. For example, creating a round rectangle button, oval shape buttons, applying a gradient to the buttons, doing a stroke for the buttons. This is the example of layer list buttons. And we can also create a circular by adding an image or by a circular by adding a image text. So without further ado, let's dive right into how to create the particular button that was actually shown in the demo. Okay, let's begin by adding a button to our app's layout. So you could press a Control plus click on the activity main, which will open up the layout. Or you can actually go to the resource and under the layout section, you can go to the activity main external. So here, since I created from the default theme and the activity is defaulted to function layout, since I like to use a linear layout to have so many buttons in one activity, so it's a bit more easier. So once I have done the linear layout, the opening and closing will be changed. And I'm removing the text view and I'm going to add a button. So if I go into my design tab, so now I'm just going to drag and drop my button. So we could see that now I've added my button. Now if I go back into my code, so here button will actually appear inside of a code XML. So now I could further refine this. My grid I would like to use based on the current activity. So I'm just looking as match parent. To match the parent grid. The height is based on what is the text string size. So based on the text, it will actually auto adjust the height. So the weight is 1, that is for the weight of the buttons layout. This is for the text. So the first thing that we actually need currently now is to create a drawable. We do want to customize your shape for your own buttons. So to do that, you have to go into the drawable and you have to create a new particular drawable. In this case, I like to use a rounded rectangle. So I created one rounded rectangle and we could see that I created a solid color, which is a red color, and go to the corner to put in the radius. So it's 8 dB. So when I put a radius, you can just see it actually curve around 8 dB. If I increase the curve, it become 18 dB. It will curve more inwards. So it depends on preference, how much of the radius you like to uh, make make it sharp or you want to make it more smoother. So depending on that, you have to change your radius. So next, let's look into how to add the rounded rectangle into the bottom. So just have to go and go and background. Then you could call notation drawable started the point. So once you have added the drawable, you can see the shape actually got changed. But for some reason, the color is not changing. This is fine because due to if you have a very complex layout, sometimes the rendering will have issue to show on the design tab. So we can go ahead and run and check it from the emulator. Is it reflecting the correct colors and the design is it correct? Here's a bit hard to see the design, so I'm trying to add some margin on the top. So I got margin top, let's say 10 dB, and I'm also trying to make it 10 dB for margin, say left, and similar thing on the right. Change the rules to margin right, and yeah. So now we have like the button quite centered. It's not too at the end of the layout. So let's move on to run this on the emulator to see whether it's reflecting to the new Android background. Now let's look into once the installation has been successfully installed, you see that the button that we have created is actually not matching the color that we should prefer is red color, but the color that is actually shown is actually good purple color. But the shape is actually using the Android background, the rounded rectangle is actually using the correct shape. So how many beginners will actually get stuck at this point and figuring out how do I fix the color to reflect correctly. So one of the main reason why this is happening is once you go to Android manifest, the main theme that we're actually using is a theme customized button. So to press Control, navigate, I could see that the theme customize button is using a base theme customize button. And this is actually extending to the material tree no action bar. Material tree by default, as I mentioned, it will use a photo color. So how do we quickly fix this? There's two ways. First way is you can go back to the XML. You can change the current theme to use no a simple design no action bar. So this will actually fix the issue where currently it will use the colors of themes that you actually set from your main activity. So you can actually set your own theme every single time when you create an activity. So this could prevent or this could you all your UI and UX will based on that particular theme. What are the colors or what are the animations or what are the other event style that we have to use from the relevant themes. So now after we have made these changes, let's rerun the installation back to see whether it's reflecting the correct UI buttons or not. So now after the installation, we could see that current theme changes that we have set, the no action bar. So currently the button is able to show the correct color based on the changes that we have done on the Android background to use the red color and the longer rectangle. Next, let's start in looking into customizing the button style. After you have added the button, it's time to make it more visually appealing. Android Studio offers numerous customizing options where you can modify the background color, the text color, size, shape of the button. So let's go into the button that you have created. So I would like to first rename the current text. So let's say I go and extract Spring resource. And after I've extracted, by pressing Control and clicking on the button, it will bring you to the string XML file. So here, it's always good to give the name based on what you are going to display. So in this case, I'm going to rename as rectangular button. So followed by rectangular button. Since I changed the name, so I have to change the name in the. So once we have done changed the name, you can see that it's actually being updated. Next, we go to text color. Like text color. So I'm going to choose. Yeah. So for the text, we can go a step further where we can even customize the font that is needed, or even the text size. What is the text size we like to display? So we can either change it from here, or we can go to the design tab to make. One last changes that we like to do is always have the Android ID. What is the action your button or any UI that is going to be used? In this case, in this to become button. So now we have done with the rectangular button into different layouts of buttons. How do we customize for different buttons? Next, let's look into how to create the oval button. So the oval button, as we can see here, the shape is just curved the oval at the corners, whereas previously the rectangular button, the corners is actually just smoothened a bit. So the design is almost similar, where the buttons, configurations, the start and the end, I have declared it's the same thing. The only changes is actually is inside the background, where inside the background I have created a new one called oval. So in the oval, we can actually look that the currently what I did is the solid, the color is the same, but the corners I actually changed it to 50 dB to have the oval kind of shape. Whereas previously when we created an rounded rectangle, you can see the radius is actually 8 dB, so that means it only curved a bit. So as we increase more, so the curve will also increase by a lot. So depending on how much curve that actually require, which will give that oval reflection, we're able to change. So similarly, the text color and all the layout margin is the same. And once we able to run the output, we can actually see it will reflect as this oval button as we can see here. And if you guys are interested to actually get the full code for the current customizable button, I will be sharing the link below. So please click on the link and you guys can download the source code if you guys want to customize it further. Next, moving on, let's look into how to create a gradient button. So gradient button, the XML is everything is the same. So the only changes is your drawable. So in gradient button is usually a combinations of two different colors or two or more than two different colors that you can actually combine. So if you go into the gradient XML, there is a start and end for gradient. So by using that, you can define what is your start color. In this case, I'm using a red color. And my end color is actually an orange, as you can see below. And we can also define what is the degree of the angle for the color combination. You could actually change to 360 or 0 degrees. So depending on that, the gradient will be created. The corners, as I explained, it's just to give you what kind of a shape that you want at the edge of the shape. So we use corners for that. So the gradient is helpful to create more than two colors under a same drawable layout. So once you have done the changes and if you look into the emulator, you can actually see now this is how it actually looks, the gradient color, the red color and below is the orange color. So it's two different color combinations. Moving on, let's look into how to create a stroke for the buttons. Next, let's look into the stroke button. So for stroke button, we will have a outer layer, which is the stroke color of the stroke, and inner layer, which is a very one color that is consistent. So we can even make we can even make the stroke. We can even adjust the width of the stroke. How big do we want the width of the stroke? So if I go to the stroke XML, the drawable that I have created, we could see that similar to previously a gradient, we also have a stroke opening, meaning stroke shape. So when you click on the stroke, you can, as I mentioned, you can adjust the width of it. So if I give 5 or if you increase to 15, depending on how much you are increasing, the size will also increase. So depending on that, I'm using a 5 dB and the color is what color you would like to use. And as I explained, the radius is the same is for the corners and the solid color is actually for the entire, what is the solid color. So when you declare a stroke, the stroke will have its own defined color. So with this, when you run it, so in the emulator, we can see that this is how the stroke actually will look. So others like the colors, you can even have more than one color for the stroke if you like to have multiple strokes under the same gradient button. Next, let's look into how to create a layer list button. So a layer list is where if you go into the drawable that I have created, a layer list is where the drawable resource that will allow you to actually create a stack of multiple layers. So each layers is defined as an item element within the layer list. That means you can have multiple levels of different shapes of Android shapes, multiple items which can be concentrated on top of the layer list. So here I'm only having two, but I can even have more than two. I can even have three or four different shapes. So all will be concentrated into one singular layer list. So in here, the first one is actually you can see I have created a rectangle. So this is the outer layer, and you can see the color I defined is actually red color here. So the outer layer I have created here is red color, and the radius is around 9 dB. And for the internal one, yeah, I'm further customizing by having the Android laptop. So it's for the inside one. So now I'm also using the app, but the color is actually white color. The radius is around 8 dB for the curvature. So you can even have oval. I can even create a third one, which is an oval shape, and it's actually internally after the second rectangle. So it depends on how are we customizing it. And yeah, since I'm using a white color background, so I'm just renaming the text color to actually have a black color output. So this is how it will actually look when we have a layer list button. Next, we will be looking into how to create a circular button where we can actually add a drawable for the icon into the circular button. To create a circular button inside the background, we can actually look at to create a circular button is the solid is the same, but the thing that we always have to change is actually the corners. So to create a circle, you have to use the radius to play around. So it is general mathematics. So if you want to have an oval kind of a shape, so it's always using the radius, which you have to divide by half. So in this case, I'm using 1000 dB. So in 1000 dB, it will be entire circle. So you can see that this curvature, are all 1000 dB. So that means it's going to be collapsed to come as a circle. So we have a different dimension sizing. So definitely the radius will also change for the circular. So the next thing you can see here is the drawable currently is red color. So I just, if there are people who are not sure how to add a drawable for the icons. So in Android, there's few vector assets that's already there that we can actually use. So if you go to the vector asset here, we could actually choose the clip art. And in this case, I'm trying to use the reaction. So I'm just trying to find and click on the add reaction. So you will get a vector asset. And we can even further change the colors of the vector asset. Since my background is a red color, so I'm using a white color so the icon will be more visible. Then once I've selected the color and I click next, and then you just click on the finish, so it will be created. So once created, you should be able to find the drawable and it should be able to appear inside here. Yeah, but as you know, as you can see here, it's a bit smaller because the current drawable and the padding size I actually gave is actually 20. So you can actually play around with the padding to actually enlarge it or to make it small. So once you have done that, if you click on the run app, yep, you can see that now it's a circular, and we also have the item that we have added in. So to make it more bigger, we can actually play around with the padding to make it more bigger. So and the last customized button we're looking into is a circular button, but it's different where you can currently add a text rather than the icon or vector assets. The last button we want to create is the number circle button. So I'm just creating a ring type of circular, which will have by using the layer list button. So previous layer list I showed was a rectangular kind of a layer list. So now I'm actually creating a layer list for the circular. So if I go into the circular layer, we can actually look that I've created a layer list, and inside the layer list there's two items. So since I want a circular kind of a effect, the shape to be a circular, so I'm using the Android shell as oval for the outer layer, and the color that I have given is actually red color. And the second item is for the internal one. So now you can see I've given a bottom. So this is to customize the sizing of the bottom, left, right, and top. And finally, the shape is still oval. And the color I've given is white color. So by having this, once I've done this, you can see in the activity main, I further customize since I like to give a ring type kind of a number. So I've added the text appearance, color, and also a bigger sizing. And also since this is a white color background, so I'm using a black color for the bolding of the color. So once I've done this, I try to run this in the emulator. Now you can actually see there's another one. And yeah, this gives a kind of a ring type, kind of a circular button. So that's the end for the customizable button. We can create as fancy as possible depending on what is your UI and UX requirement. Based on that, we're able to design or customize the button based on what requirement we have to meet. So next, let's look into button is should not be only attractive, but they also need to perform action when we click on it. Whenever we click on one of the button, there should be another action. And let's look into how do we code to actually control the actions when you click on the button. Next, to show the button behavior, I have created in the main activity on create. I've actually created attached all the buttons by attaching the find view by ID, and I have also added the set on click listener. So I have implemented the view on click listener. So I've just created a simple action where if we are clicking on the buttons where we will actually display a toes. For example, if you click on a rectangular button, we will have a rectangular toes and oval button and etc. So when you actually run this particular application, so now if I go and click on the rectangular button, you can see there's a toes called rectangular button. Similarly for oval button, gradient button, stroke button, layer list button, and also icon circle button, and finally it's the number circle button. So the duration is also can put to set based on the duration. So I'm putting the short, so which is you can see the timing video. The long is around 1 second above. So it depends on the duration. And we can even further, this is for whenever, what is the action whenever we click on it. So I'm using on click. So based on the ID, I'm trying to refer. So based on the ID, I'm actually trying to do some action. There's also certain cases where we like to disable certain buttons. For example, when I click on this particular rectangular button, or I click on the oval button, maybe I want to change the color, or maybe I like to disable the rectangular button after I click on it. So how do I disable? For example, I just go to the rectangular button where I can actually call to, so the variable I'm using for rectangular button is this. So I can just call this dot set enable. So I can actually control whether I will need to make it. If you want to disable it, I just set it to set enable to become as false. So when I run these changes, so now what will happen is when I click on the rectangular button, after I click, it will actually show a tool and will bring up the button. So let's look into it. Okay, so if I click on it, you can see it's a rectangular button and this have been gray up. If I click on it, you can actually see there's no more toes coming up because I actually have disabled the particular button. It's a bit hard to see because but for the color is actually red color. But if you change it to a different color when you disable, maybe it's a bit more clear. But yes, you can see you won't be actually able to show the toes because it's already disabled. So you won't really able to click on it anymore. So these are examples of how we can customize the buttons doing one-time from the code level. People also customize the color on runtime whenever we click on the buttons. We have reached to the end of the section. So let's recap what we have learned. So we have successfully learned how to add and customize button in Android Studio. Remember to keep your button design consistent with your app overall visual theme. We could also experiment with different styles and layout to create an engaging user interface. And don't forget to handle button clicks efficiently to provide a seamless user experience. If you do want to get the source code for the current customizable button, I provided the link in the description below. where you could download from the GitHub and further customize from the source code that is given. So if you found this video helpful, please do subscribe to our channel and for more Android development tutorials. Feel free to explore our other videos for additional tips and tricks. Happy coding. See you in the next video.